Imagine a place that offers you paradise in your golden years. Manicured lawns, picture-perfect skies, communities with faces that you know and revere all too well. Now imagine that perfect place has a really dark secret. A monstrous creature that stalks in the night, and a conspiracy that takes the one thing residents cannot afford: time. This is the world of the Boroughs, streaming now on Netflix, and it starts with a terrifying bang, but it ends with a mundane whisper. You know that unique brand of disappointment you get when you find a new show and it has all the ingredients to be an absolute masterpiece, but it comes out half-baked? That's the Boroughs. You see the potential, you taste the flavors, and you know what could have been, but you just walk away a little more hungry. That right there is the experience of watching Netflix's sci-fi mystery, The Boroughs. It pulls you in with a killer premise. It feels like Stranger Things meets Cocoon. It's set in a picturesque retirement community in the New Mexico desert. It has a stellar cast led by the always brilliant Alfred Molina. And it's executive produced by the Duffer Brothers, the very people that brought you Stranger Things. It's got charm, it has atmosphere, and it is genuinely spooky for about 5 episodes. I mean, for those first few episodes, I was hooked. Absolutely hooked. The storytelling was on par. The eeriness was unmatched. I mean, the episode 1, the monster is incredibly unsettling. And that's exactly what you want from a monster show. You want to feel unsettled. You want to feel uneasy. You want to feel what those characters are feeling. And episode 1 through 3 does an amazing job of making you feel that uneasy atmosphere. But then the momentum starts to wobble. The story stretches, and by the time the credits roll on the final episode, you're left with a frustrating sense of ambiguity, not satisfaction. This is a show that started off with so much promise and had the greatest potential, but it stumbled right at the finish line, which is incredibly frustrating when you have an amazing cast like Alfred Molina and even Gina Davis. Although I will say Gina Davis has had way too much Botox, and now she talks like this throughout the entire show.
You know, when I got to read the script, I was just like, oh my God, I want to be in this. And the character is just exactly what I would want to do.
It's really weird. But before we get to the end, let's talk about what the Boroughs gets right, because there's a lot to love here. The core concept is fantastic. We're introduced to a seemingly perfect retirement community that feels just a little too good to be true. The story is anchored by Sam Cooper, played by the aforementioned Alfred Molina, a grieving former engineer who just moved into this retirement community after losing his wife. He's grumpy, he's curmudgeonous, he's heartbroken, and he wants nothing to do with the forced smiles of his new home. Molina is predictably phenomenal. He grounds the whole series with a performance that's both deeply moving and subtly funny. You feel his loss, you feel his frustration, and his slow, reluctant transformation into the hero that he never wanted to be. This whole thing, the opening scenes, the opening credits through to the first 3 episodes, everything is picturesque. It looks great, but it's that sort of eerie picturesque, almost too perfect, very Potemkin, right? Like it's not a real place, even though it's being portrayed and lived in as a real place. You could just tell that there's an unsettling undertone, a current of eeriness that pervades these first 3 episodes, and that is an amazing thing, and it is carried so well by the cast, especially Alfred Molina. And of course, he is not alone. The show has an ensemble cast, a sort of gray rebellion, a call to one of the episodes, an unlikely crew of senior misfits who team up when they realize something is deeply wrong with their idyllic neighborhood. No spoilers. There's a sharp-witted former journalist, a spiritual seeker, and a cynical musical manager, all of whom are consistently underestimated by the corporate staff running the place. one of the greatest things about this show and the cast is the way that they portray their golden years, being older than most of the people likely watching the show. But they're so relatable because if you're like me and you're in your 40s, you're not quite old, but you're the oldest of the young people and sort of the youngest of the old people. You're kind of in that area. And they kind of feel that same way, even though they're in their 60s and 70s. It's a really interesting dichotomy, and they do it so well. They portray it so well. The dialogue is very believable. And a lot of the best moments of the show really are when two characters are sitting down having a conversation with one another, because that's where you truly feel the emotion of the show. Yeah, it's a monster show. It's not a drama show. It's not, about grief and loss, even though it has those thematic undertones laced within it. It's obviously at its core a monster show. And they do a great job, again, within those first 3 episodes of sewing those things in interchangeably within one another so masterfully. I had such high hopes for how the rest of the show would continue. And unfortunately, at the end, the ambiguity kind of is what killed me. Atmosphere is another huge win here. The sun-drenched, eerily perfect streets of the New Mexico community create a unique and, as I said, unsettling backdrop for a horror story. There's this palpable sense of dread lurking just beneath the polished surface of everything, a feeling that something monstrous is hiding in plain sight. You can feel the Duffer Brothers' influence here, but not in the cheesy, this is a clone of Stranger Things. It really doesn't feel that way at all. It's just, this is really kind of a call to how talented these brothers are in the way they're able to duplicate something really memorable, really magical and palpable that doesn't have anything to do with the previous universe that they just spent 10 years within. They've created something truly unique here, and it is something that I was really, really excited to see, because I really did think, okay, Duffer Brothers, I loved Stranger Things. I'll probably like this. And I did like this, but not because I liked Stranger Things. The best way I can put it is this is not a connection to Stranger Things, but you could put both of these things on the same movie shelf and they would sit symbiotically and be just fine. Pacing problems and the mid-season slog. Around the halfway mark, the story kind of starts to lose steam. The tight narrative that you felt in the early episodes gives way to sort of a meandering middle section that a lot of shows fall to, where the plot feels stretched and kind of incredibly thin. The 8-episode season starts to feel like it has about 5 episodes worth of actual story. Subplots get introduced here, but they don't really go anywhere, and they don't feel rewarding when you see them to fruition. The main investigation starts to stall as our heroes hit the same predictable roadblocks over and over and over. The urgent feeling from the beginning starts to fade, and a sense of repetition kind of creeps in. And I think this is a common problem in the streaming era, when they take a show and they stretch it to fit an episode count as opposed to telling the story that needs to be told. So what I mean by that is you could have a series that's 4 episodes and be amazing. Or, because of corporate, you can stretch it into 8 episodes and have 4 or 5 forgettable episodes. And that's kind of what this show falls into. And that's kind of disappointing. However, it's great to see Alfred Molina, and more of him is always better. And there's so many characters that you kind of fall in love with here that it's kind of forgivable, but it does fall into that trap. You're not going to see anything here that you haven't seen before. I mean, it's a formulaic show for sure. It has the corporate bad guy and the young and the youth stealing from the old. And then it has the sort of underdog, as in the geriatrics, the octogenarians, kind of overcoming things to save their own days and stuff. So it's very formulaic, but it works in a fun way. I'm not saying that in a negative. It's actually one of its positives. Speaking of the corporate bad guys, we get hints about what they're doing, but their motivations and the full scope of their operation remains infuriatingly vague for far, far too long. The show seems more interested in holding on to its mysteries than it does providing satisfying answers along the way, which just does a disservice to the excellent setup. They set up something really great, especially within episode 1 when you start to see the monster. And then as each episode goes on, the monster becomes a lot less menacing, not because they humanize it or anything. It just doesn't have the same atmosphere. You just don't feel it as eerily as you did in episode 1. And it's not because you're desensitized. It's just the storytelling isn't as strong, and there's no payoff when they show the monster, when they talk about the monster, when they talk about what they're going to do to confront the monster. There's just no payoff. It's just dialogue or really, really anticlimactic fruition. I mean, the charm of the cast can only carry things so far when the plot itself is kind of just treading water. It's during these middle episodes that you might start to wonder if the show actually knows where it's going. Okay, this is officially your spoiler warning. Going forward from here, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the show to its fruition, pause now, watch the rest of the show, then come back, watch the rest of this video, and you tell me what you think down below on if I'm right or way out to lunch. After spending a whole season building up the mystery of the subterranean entity known as Mother, the ending gives us far more questions than it ever does answers. In what seems to be the final showdown, the creature's body explodes in a wave of light, apparently killing itself and its children. And the main human villain, Blaine, Sam, who is right there for it, is somehow spared. The immediate threat is gone, and we see the surviving residents enjoying their lives and ready for whatever comes next. Thematically, I get it. The ending is about acceptance, and that makes total sense to me. The whole show has an undertone of grief and navigating grief and getting to an acceptance point. So, that makes sense thematically, sure. But as a resolution to the sci-fi mystery, it's incredibly unsatisfying. We never get a clear explanation of what Mother was, where it came from, or what its real goal was. Was it an alien? Was it a primordial god? The show doesn't seem to know, or at least isn't telling us what Mother is and what Mother's motivations were and how the humans learned how to control it to begin with. There's so many unanswered questions that you would think might be answered in season 2. But here's the part that I said might shock you at the beginning. There's no season 2. The show's been canceled. It's done now. After positive reviews and ratings to the show, it's just done. It's gone. Apparently Netflix says it costs too much money to create the show, and now we're left with one season. The good news is the season doesn't really end on a cliffhanger. It ends in a quasi satisfactory way. It is a complete ending. It's just not really the ending the show deserved, and honestly, it's not the legacy the show deserved. I absolutely think it could have gone for a second season, and I absolutely would have watched the second season despite my criticisms of the show, because at the end of the day, this show is 6.5 pumpkins out of 10. And honestly, that's not bad in today's streaming climate. So if you have or have not seen The Boroughs streaming on Netflix, do yourselves a favor, go check it out. Maybe go watch it now after you've seen my review and see what you think, and come back here to yell at me, or come back here and be like, you know what, Matt? You really do Macabre, and you were right about this show. Take care, everybody. Love you. See you on the next one.